الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله رب السماوات ورب الأرض رب العالمين، وله الكبرياء في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم. الحمد لله الذي بنعمته تتم الصالحات. ربنا لك الحمد حتى ترضى، ولك الحمد إذا رضيت، ولك الحمد بعد الرضا. صلى اللهم وسلم وبارك على سيد الأولين والآخرين محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له الملك الحق المبين. أشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وصفيه من خلقه وخليله وأمين على وحيه. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله ولتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. My dear respected brothers and sisters in Islam, all praise and glory and thanks are due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We owe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala everything we have. وَمَا بِكُم مِّن نَعْمَةٍ فَمِنَ اللَّهِ. And we are dependent on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all our needs. يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسُ أَنْتُمُ الْفُقَرَاءُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ هُوَ الْغَنِيُّ الْحَمِيدُ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us so much that there is hardly anything we can do to thank Him enough for that. We just have to do our best and push our limits and pray that Allah accepts and forgives our limitations and our shortcomings. وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تَحْصُوهَا. I'm going to start today with a couple of reminders or thoughts, inshallah, before we resume our series. And the first thing is a dua. It's an istighfar actually, and it is called Sayyidul Istighfar, the best form of istighfar, asking forgiveness. And I found this dua encapsulates very essential elements of our deen. In this dua, you say, Allahumma anta rabbi la ilaha illa ant, khalaqtani wa ana abduk, wa ana ala ahdika wa wa'dika ma istata'at. أعوذ بك من شر ما صنعت أبوء لك بنعمتك علي وأبوء بذنبي فاغفر لي فإنه لا يغفر الذنوب إلا أنت. In this istighfar, form of istighfar, you say, Oh Allah, you are my Lord. There is no God but you. You created me and I am your slave. Just to remind yourself of this essential relationship that Allah is your creator and that's what you're supposed to be His slave or servant. And I will stick to my covenant and promise to you. Remember, we were talking that this deen is ahad wa mithaq. There is a covenant, contract between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you have to try your best day in and day out to honor it. So in this dua, you are promising, you are renewing your pledge and commitment. I will stick to my covenant and promise to you as to my ability, or to the best of my ability. I seek refuge in you from the evil of what I have done. You're acknowledging your shortcomings, and you're asking Allah to protect you from that and to forgive. I acknowledge to you your bounties on me. Same idea that I was emphasizing, that you're acknowledging the bounties, the favors, the ni'am that Allah has given you. And I acknowledge to you my sin. Thus, forgive me, for none forgives sins except you. So, reminding yourself that of Tawheed, Allah has created you and you are supposed to be His servant. You're renewing your commitment to honor your pledge and your covenant with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I will stick to my covenant and promise to you to the best of my ability. You are seeking refuge in Allah from the evil that you have done. you're acknowledging the bounties of Allah on you, and you're acknowledging your sins, and you're asking for forgiveness. It's an amazing form of istighfar and amazing form of dua. I strongly urge all of us to memorize it in Arabic, in English, in any language, and to do it all the time, and to do it sincerely, while really concentrated, because you're talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's some sort of munajat. It's some form of private talk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or a private time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second concept that I want to emphasize is the idea that in the verse that we start with in Jumu'ah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلْتَنْظُرْ نَفْسٌ مَا قَدَّمَتْ لِغَدٍ. Let every one of you always check what you have sent forth for tomorrow, for the day of judgment, for life after death. What did you save? What did you invest with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So as you check your account in this dunya, make sure to check your account, the other account, which is in 1 second, in a fraction of the second. That's all what matters for you. Everything else become useless, everything else become irrelevant, except anything that you have left, righteous children that may be praying for you, sadaqah jariyah, knowledge that you have spread, that can benefit you. Other than that, it's what you have saved and invested with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in a similar concept, says, over there, say, وَلْتَنْظُرْ نَفْسٌ مَا قَدَّمَتْ لِغَدٍ, what you have sent for tomorrow. In other verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا تُقَدِّمُوا لِأَنفُسِكُمْ أقيموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة وما تقدموا لأنفسكم من خير تجدوه عند الله. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 110. And establish prayer and give zakah, and whatever good you put forward for yourself. Whatever good you put forward for yourselves, you will find it with Allah. That's in Surah Al-Baqarah, you will find it with Allah. In Surah Al-Muzammil, ما تقدموا لأنفسكم خيرا تجدوه عند الله وخيرا وأعظم أجرا. And whatever good you put forward for yourselves, again the idea that you are putting forward for yourselves. All of us, we are a lot of time worried about what we're going to leave for our children and to our family. But you need to be worried also about what you put for yourself, what you put forward for yourself. And whatever good you put forward for yourselves, and actually the verse starts by, again, establish prayer and give zakah, and loan Allah, a good loan. وَأَقْرِضُ اللَّهَ قَرْضًا حَسَنًا. And loan Allah. That applies to anything. It doesn't have to be money. Anything that you give, you do for the sake of Allah, anytime, anything that you do for the sake of Allah, that's loaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to encourage us to do good things. He makes them in the form of like you're giving Allah a loan. And loan Allah a goodly loan. And whatever good you put forward for yourselves, again, you will find it with Allah. Same like the previous verse. But this time, it's better and greater in reward. هُوَ خَيْرًا وَأَعْظَمَ أَجْرًا. So make sure that when you wake up every morning, to try to look for opportunities to save and invest with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is it that I can do now, today, so that I can increase my account with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I can send more, save more, invest more with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You start to be looking for good deeds, or looking for opportunities to do good deeds, not even waiting for the opportunity to come to you. Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu says, some people say it's a hadith, but most probably, more than likely, it's the saying of hadith of Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu says, الناس نيام فإذا ماتوا انتبهوا. People are asleep. When they die, they wake up. It's a beautiful statement. Piece of wisdom. When they die, they wake up. So now they are asleep, and when they die, they wake up. I found this very interesting because, believe it or not, all people will be surprised at that moment of death. Why? Because suddenly they're going to see the full picture, the whole truth. The picture that we see it maybe partially nowadays, maybe it's not clear, maybe it's in the back of our mind. Suddenly, the full truth and the full picture is in front of you. That's why he says when they die, they wake up, because they see the full picture and the full truth. So all people are going to be surprised. And all people are going to regret. Regret what? Regret they didn't do a better job. So how people are different? People are different in the sense that some people will be surprised but not too much. And they will regret but not too much. Which means, to bring the idea closer, it's like student who still get an A, but he missed some questions of the test, compared to a student who failed the test completely, get an F. So some people, they be surprised and they will be regretting that they didn't do a better job. Almost everybody. But of course, our job in this life is to do our best so that to minimize the element of surprise and minimize the element of regret. We all gonna wish that we did better job, but at least it shouldn't be that bad. It shouldn't be that basically someone has failed the test. Now, why people are surprised and why people, they wish they did better job? Either because of the things they didn't know, and that's not an excuse. Again, standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I don't know, that's not an excuse. It's like standing before a judge when you violate the law and say, I didn't know this is illegal, it's not going to help you. So I don't know, make sure you realize that's not a valid excuse. Most people are going to be surprised because they didn't know. They didn't know. Or they knew things, but they were in the back of their mind. Or they knew what they were supposed to do, but they didn't do it because they were weak. And of course, people will regret that they didn't do a better job, especially about the things that they knew. There are things that we knew in this life that we are supposed to do that we are not doing them. People will regret that big time. But also they will regret even things that they didn't do because they did not know them. So again, in this life, we should do as long as we're living. We don't know how much is left. Now, the only thing we know that we're getting closer. So we have to, actually, as we get closer, we have to do even better job or try to push ourselves more so that we eliminate or minimize that element of surprise and that element of regret. How do we do that? We do it by seeking knowledge. Know how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will hold you accountable. Know the criteria. Don't make your own criteria, because that's not going to help you. It's like somebody writing their job description or writing their own expectations, and they say, I thought I was doing a good job. No, it's not about you. It's not up to you. Seek knowledge about what is expected from you. What are the criteria based on which you're going to be held accountable? What is your job description that Allah has created you to fulfill and to perform? Because in your job, you were hired to do a specific job. There is job description. In this life, you were created to do a specific job. You'd better know it. Because like at work, it's not going to help you to say that I didn't know this is expected from me or this is part of my job description. It's not going to help you to stand before Allah and say I didn't know that I had to do this. So seek knowledge. and try to educate yourself about number of things that we're going to mention in detail. Now, when we say seek knowledge, a lot of people, when we talk about Islamic knowledge, they think about memorizing Quran or memorizing Hadith or fiqh, the halal and the haram. That's not what is meant by knowledge. Knowledge here essentially is to know your mission in life, the expectations and the maqasid. What is the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you are assigned to execute? What is the purpose of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, muradullah, that you are supposed to fulfill? That's the essence of the knowledge. So it's not like sitting down and start reading books and maybe memorizing books of Torah or fiqh or no. It's about the essence. The heart of this deen is what is your mission in this life? What are the expectations from you? What are the maqasid, the overarching goals of this deen that Allah has gave us the responsibility and the honor to fulfill them? And that's what you should be. You should educate yourself so that you will not be surprised and you will not regret that you did not do a better job. A lot of time you hear this from students. They say, I thought I was ready for the test, or I thought I did good job in the test, or I thought I wrote a good paper. Why I didn't get a good grade? Check the rubric. You didn't, it's not according to the criteria. It's not up to you to say it was a good work. There was a rubric, which is the criteria that the professor will use to grade your work. You need to be aware of that. You need to be aware and work accordingly so that you will not be surprised. وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى. In our life, in this life, in our deen, we have to know the rubric, the expectations, the job, description, and then fulfill them to the best of our ability. So sometimes it's a problem of knowledge, and we have to fix that. Sometimes it's a problem of weakness. People sometimes they say, I know this is bad, but I cannot stop it. I know I have to do this, but I cannot do it. I'm weak. That also, there are ways to fix that. There are ways to increase your willpower so that you will do whatever you know that it's the right thing to do. Now, whether you look at things from Islamic perspective or in this life in general, you can divide people in two categories. There is a category of people who do what needs to be done. They have a purpose in this life. They call them purpose-driven people. They have a purpose, and then whatever it takes, they will do it. These people, they restrain themselves, they discipline themselves, they do whatever needs to be done, even if it is not convenient. They may have to stay late at night studying, waking up early in the morning, doing things that even if they're not convenient, but they know they need to do that. These are usually the people who are successful in this life, and the people who are successful in the hereafter. The ones who try to find out what they should do and they do it. And there are people who do what is convenient. And these people usually they fail in this life, and also as a Muslim they will not succeed. If you're going to follow the convenience, you do what's convenient, you're not going to get anywhere, neither in your life or in your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and in this deen. The problem that happened with us as Muslims throughout history is we took our deen, we took Islam from commitment down to convenience. Rather than finding out what we need to do and do it, we reduced the task. We wrote basically our own job description. We reduced the tasks, the do's and don'ts. First of all, we reduced Islam to a short list of do's and don'ts. And we kept shortening that list. Nowadays, many Muslims, they are under the impression that when it comes to do's, it's salah and fasting. And when it comes to don'ts, it just don't drink and maybe don't commit adultery. So we kept shortening that list to the point nowadays you can find someone who's practicing Muslim, but they have no problem lying or cheating or taking bribery. They don't find any issue with that, even though they're practicing Muslims, because we kept reducing the list of haram and we kept reducing and shortening the list of duties to end up with something that is very convenient. And even if it is not convenient to pray, it's not very convenient to pray, we are doing it because it became a habit. It became a habit that we cannot break. That's why you find in many Muslim societies people who fast in Ramadan, but they don't pray. Or maybe they pray only Ramadan. Or maybe they stop drinking in Ramadan and then resume the night of Eid. All of this will tell you that fasting became a habit. It's something that is part of the habit that people they don't want to break. It's not ibadah anymore. And that applies to Salah. Unfortunately, for many Muslims, it became a very routine task that we do, has no effect. We just do it to get it out of the way. Why? Why we did all of this? One is because of lack of knowledge. We don't know any better, unfortunately. And that's why I said that has to be fixed. Knowledge. So one, this is the way Deen reached us. We inherited this form of Deen, that we are given these two short lists and we are trying to stick to them. The second reason why we're doing this, why we brought this religion from commitment and dedication and doing what needs to be done, what you're supposed to do, and duties. And you say, remember the istighfar, honoring your covenant with Allah. Brought this to convenience because we're taking things for granted. A lot of Muslims nowadays, they are under the impression that because they were born Muslims, they will be fine. Anything they will do, it's a bonus. It's like extra credit. But just because their name is a Muslim name and they were born to Muslim parents, that will be enough. A lot of Muslims are under this impression. So everybody found the minimum. Some people found the minimum in praying and fasting. Some people, they found even lower minimum. That even without praying and fasting, Allah Ghafur Rahim will be fine. So one, lack of knowledge, and that has to be fixed. We are very ignorant of our deen. And again, I'm not talking about you memorizing fatwa or becoming a mufti or memorizing hadith, etc. I'm talking about understanding the heart of your deen. The essence that the companions who were illiterate, they understood it. Even though some of them did not memorize a lot of Quran and there was no hadith documented at that time. So, second reason, lack of knowledge, and then second, taking things for granted. Third, because a lot of us are worshipping out of fear of punishment. And that's all. There is no incentive to worship. We're not very motivated. We're not very excited to worship. And we're doing it because we have to. And you can just imagine, hypothetically, if the 1.5 billion Muslims nowadays, or the ones who are practicing, if you come and tell them that, you know what, you don't have to pray. You will be admitted to heaven even without praying. I don't know how many will stop praying. Why? Because in our minds we're doing it out of fear of punishment. If you tell me that there is no punishment, then why should I pray? And worshipping Allah out of fear of punishment will make you try to do the minimum. That's always the case. If the whole thing is about fear of punishment, then like student will be asking about what's the passing grade. Is C will get me past this course? That's what lazy student will be asking. So worshipping Allah out of fear or out of habit has to be fixed. if we are serious about succeeding and about meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or leaving this life with no big surprise and no big regret. And number 4 is the comfort zone. Quran is full of verses that say why people did not answer the call of the prophets, their messengers. Why? What was the typical excuse or reason? إِنَّ وَجَدْنَا آبَاءَنَا عَلَى أُمَّةٍ وَإِنَّ عَلَى آثَارِهِمْ لَمُهْتَدُونَ وَلَمُقْتَدُونَ. People said they did not respond, they did not answer the call of the messengers. Why? Because they said that this is what we found our parents doing and that's what we're going to continue to do. Now what's the difference between them and us today? They found their parents worshipping idols, so they continue to worship idols. We found this version of convenient Islam and doing the minimum, so we continue to do the minimum. None of this is going to be a valid excuse. And we all need to work on all of this. Don't take anything for granted. Never. 2, educate yourself about what is expected from you and what is it that you need to do in this life. I can tell you from now, it's a lot more than praying and fasting and paying zakat. It's a lot more than that is expected. And 3, try to fix this or change worshipping Allah out of punishment, fear of punishment, or out of habit, into worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala out of love and gratitude. That's the highest quality of worship. When you are worshipping Allah, to express your love to Allah and your gratitude. أَبُوءُ لَكَ بِنِعْمَتِكَ عَلَيْهِ. I'm so grateful. I feel that Allah has given me so much that I'm looking for ways to express my gratitude. So I go to pray and I do things, good things, as an expression of my love of Allah and of my gratitude towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the quality of worship that we need to have and move from the low quality. This should be the last resort. You know, when you have flat tire, use the spare, but only to get to the tire shop to fix it. This should be the case. I mean, fearing Allah out of fear of punishment should be when your iman goes very low. That's your minimum. But try to bounce back as soon as possible to go back to the standard, which is worshipping Allah out of love and out of gratitude. When your iman goes weak, that should be the last resort. It's like an airplane has 4 engines, and when 3 of them goes wrong, that's the last resort. So you start forcing yourself to worship, but while doing this, you should be working on strengthening your iman so that you go back. It's like the spare tire, just temporary. So worshipping Allah out of fear of punishment can be okay, temporary, when our faith goes down. But it should not be the norm, and it should not continue forever. So إِنَّ وَجَدْنَا آبَاءَنَا عَلَى أُمَّةٍ وَإِنَّ عَلَى آثَارِهِمْ مُقْتَدُونَ. And that's why I keep saying that we all need to rediscover the original Islam and the true Islam. The Islam that we inherited over centuries of oppression and stagnation and dictatorship and etc., it's a very bad version. On the surface, it looks the same, like the version of Islam that the Sahaba had. We pray the same way, we fast in Ramadan, but that's only on the surface. If you go a little deeper, you find nothing. It's very superficial. Compare it to the original and true Islam that has changed those individuals completely, generated great success stories, a great community, great leaders, and it is capable of doing that anytime we understand it properly and we take it seriously. وَتُوبُوا إِلَى اللَّهِ إِنَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونتوب إليه. نعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. My dear respected brother and sister in Islam, inshallah we'll be talking about the practical ways on how we can do this, how we can move from this low quality of worship into the higher quality of worship. There are practical ways. If we do them, inshallah this can happen. The first and the foremost thing that we should be focusing on and we should be working on is our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and our knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ma'rifatullah. That's the first track that you should take for life. And you should never reach a moment where you start thinking that I know enough or my relationship with Allah is strong enough, I don't need to improve it or strengthen it. The relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is when the more you know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more you love Him. That's what Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam promised. Man arafa Allah ahabba. The more you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more motivated you become to worship and to do good deeds. That's what it takes you out of doing the minimum, because to avoid punishment, into doing the maximum, to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You start worshipping not to avoid punishment, but to seek ridwanullah. And there is a huge difference between the two. Ibtigha'a mardatillah. That you're always pushing yourself to do more and worry that whether Allah is pleased with you or not. That's the proper attitude. Yes, we rely on Allah's mercy and forgiveness, but that's not an excuse not to do our job and not to do our best. So we'll come back to these practical ways, inshallah, next time, starting from al-alaqa ma'Allah, relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's something that you should start working on it, and you should continue doing this until you meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم اشف مرضانا وارحم موتانا توفنا وانت راض عنا واختم بالصالحات أعمالنا واجعل خير أعمالنا خواتمها وخير أيامنا يوم نلقاك ومتعنا اللهم بالنظر إلى وجهك الكريم. ربنا ارحم والدينا كما ربونا صغارا وارحم موتانا وجميع موتى المسلمين. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إنا كنا من الظالمين. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وأقم الصلاة.